Hi everyone, today I go over the pros and cons of BONELAB for the MetaQuest 3. BONELAB and BoneWorks were both released by the developer Stress Level Zero. In chronological order, BoneWorks came out first on December 10, 2019 for PCVR. Only much later was BONELAB released for the Quest and PCVR on September 29, 2022. So BoneWorks was released first and BONELAB was released as a sequel. Now, I never played BoneWorks because it's not available for the Quest. I've only watched videos on YouTube for PCVR. Most reviewers, commenters, and players prefer and recommend BoneWorks instead of BoneLab. So now, here are some things I like about BoneLab. I like that the developers implemented sort of a storyline within this huge sandbox. Because it's a sandbox, it's a game full of puzzles, quests, and side quests. It does have a story plot, which you can read on Wikipedia. It makes use of physics to force us to jump, strafe, crawl, leap forward, push items, grab items, and so on. The puzzles have to be completed precisely by using the gameplay or movement mechanics and the physics of the game with a variety of avatars. It's also a game full of firearms and melee weapons, and I do mean full of firearms and full of melee weapons. There are a lot of them. I like the sound of most firearms and reloading looks good. The animations are extremely well done despite the occasional bug. We can also fist fight like boxing, and we can grab enemies with our hands and arms, and we can also swing them around and throw them away. Well, at least in the Quest headsets. I like that the game displays full body avatars like Batman, Arkham Shadow, Creed, Rise to Glory, and Wanderer, The Fragments of Faith, and other similar looking games. Arizona Sunshine, on the contrary, only displays hands instead of full body avatars. Here are some things I don't like about BoneLab. A game is not a movie. A movie needs to have a good storyline, a plot, subplots, a good soundtrack that blends with the genre of the movie. A movie also has other elements like acting, dialogues, costumes, cinematography, lighting, and so on. If a game has an amazing story and cutscenes, but the controls are frustrating or tiring and the movement mechanics are cumbersome, then the story becomes much less important because it's not a movie, but a game. In other words, a movie is meant to be watched, and a game is meant to be played. Therefore, we shouldn't overrate a game's story and cutscenes. A game needs comfortable and intuitive controls, and it should have functional and flexible settings for players to use one setting instead of another. BoneLab unfortunately lacks a little bit in this area. The controls are tiring and frustrating. Yes, we can run, jump, crawl, leap forward, and use physics to move around and move objects, but it's not well developed. The running forward and strafing left and strafing right while running lacks precision because we often end up bumping into a wall or an object even after we have stopped running. This causes a lot of bumping into walls or obstacles when we're not intending to. This happens often when we intend to jump onto a barrel or a crater near a wall or an object. Yes, we can become accustomed to these flaws and become experts at the game, which I did, but there's still flaws. The firearms and melee weapons are cool, but not only we must press the grip button and trigger buttons together at once to grab anything, we also need to press and hold them together all the time, otherwise we let go of the object we are grabbing. This is similar to Arizona Sunshine's manual grip mode, but worse, precisely because we need to hold onto the trigger button and grip button together simultaneously. It's tiring when we start playing for the first month. Then it becomes less frustrating over many months of gameplay, but this is not well designed. Arizona Sunshine at least gives players two options for grip mode, including toggle grip mode that allows weapons to attach to your hand without continuously pressing the grip button. And Hard Bullet, a new game that finally came out on the Quest this past week, works more like Arizona than it does BoneLab, although Hard Bullet is still unique in many respects. The AI is poor, or perhaps there's no AI. It's scripted the old-fashioned way. Is this a lack of budget or some kind of limitation for the developers? I don't know. The enemies are all dummies. They don't attempt to dodge, escape, or take cover. It's okay if some of the enemies, called the null bodies, are automatons or just heavily prescripted. But even the human guards are dummies. It can still be fun to fight them as I show in my gameplays, but it's not intuitive because you eventually have to find a way to fight them in a fun way, which is not fun to begin with. Arizona Sunshine is exceptional because it's a zombie game, so the zombies are expected to be dumb and not do much in terms of counterattacks. Also, in Arizona, we cannot jump or take much cover, so Arizona is incomparable to BONELAB. So in the end, BONELAB is a nice addition to your game library if you've never played it. To this day, it still scores really high on meta.com. It's one of the top selling games for the Quest headsets. You cannot go wrong with this game. Yes, it has flaws, and yes, it's far from perfect, but it's definitely not a bad VR game. It's worth the money and I recommend it. Boneworks is better than BONELAB. Either way, none of these games are near perfect, including Hard Bullet. They all have their drawbacks here and there. Thank you for watching.